Alright, welcome back to the channel. Sister Kate here with a case of super synchronicity. I counted all the items, 15 items. Alright, so let's get started. Pastor and I were talking about the Army Corps of Engineers because we often come across things relating to it. We'll see fences while we're driving, and then they'll have the Army Corps of Engineers sign on it, or we'll drive by a river or a dam or over a bridge and it'll have something to do with the Army Corps of Engineers. And so we did one of our typical researches, looked it up on the Wikipedia, and found some really interesting information. And it's a long thing, so I'm not going to go through it all, but just basically the Army Corps of Engineers has been the major source of engineering across the country since 1775. I think that was when it was first formed. And they have control of all sorts of parts of our country: locks, dams, navigation, mapping, civil builds, bridges, forts, Kennedy Space Center, just all sorts of very far-reaching improvements, maintenance, measurements in the country. And so that led me to, they also have a civilian side. They have a huge amount of employees. I think it was 27 or 37,000 civilian employees. And that led me to some of the works that they worked on. And we also happened to pass by Natchez Trace. And I'd asked Pastor, like, what is that thing on the other end of the trip? And he had said, I think it's a buffalo trail or something. And so when we passed it this time, I looked that up. The Natchez Trace was a trail, and it's like prehistoric. It was first formed by animals, and they would travel along it to go from, I forget where they said in the east, I can't remember, but it terminated down in Mississippi, and it would go through or by where present-day Nashville is, because there were salt licks there, and then it would go down to Mississippi, probably in the winter months because it's warmer and there's grass, etc. 444 miles long, and it was used also as Native Americans following the game, and they made the trail better and they blazed it and so on. And then when Europeans showed up, they would follow that trail as well to go from wherever it was on the east side, I think somewhere in Virginia, possibly North Carolina, down to Mississippi also. And as that occurred, the Europeans, when the travel got regular, would put up what they called inns or stands, which would be, like little mini hotels, so you could stay the night. And peddlers and traders and brigands, highwaymen, would also be along that stretch, that Natchez Trace. Around 1801-ish, when Thomas Jefferson is president of the United States, he makes the Louisiana Purchase, and he was very eager to have the western parts of the country explored for navigation, for trade, for possible, send pioneers out there and get people to settle it and so on. And so he sent out Meriwether Lewis and William Clark to do the William and Clark expedition. I think it took 2 years, and they mapped, and we're looking for a northwest passage to go from the east coast all the way out to the west coast, etc., etc. And at the same time, people are, and Thomas Jefferson, are looking for a way to also get from the east down to Louisiana, which is part of the purchase. And so the Natchez Trace became an even more traveled byway, and the people who improved it to go from like a footpath to be able to take wagons traveling down the trace, Army Corps of Engineers. They go out there, they cut down trees, they level the ground, makes it easier for people to travel, and so on. And then wind up around, I think it said in 1827, 1821-ish, Meriwether Lewis is traveling on the Natchez Trace. He's going from where he's been made governor of the Louisiana Purchase back up to D.C., and he stops at a place called Grinder's Stand, which would be an inn, along the way, and he shoots himself in the head.
Because he's a drug addict.
Because he's got a drug addiction, he's an opium addict. The official cause of death, of course, is suicide, although his mother thinks he's been murdered.
That's because she won't believe her little boy committed suicide was a drug addict.
Right. And that is somewhere near Hohenwald, Tennessee. And I said to Pastor that there's something about that name that is striking me, because we've been in the area and we did discuss that town. And then I remembered, Hohenwald is where there's an elephant sanctuary nowadays. And Pastor and I, way back after we had bought the land for Shofar Mountain, that was one of my ideas for what to do with it. I said, let's have an elephant sanctuary. And my husband said, come on, you don't have the fencing, and, you know, there's nothing for them to eat there, etc., etc. So when I found out there was a elephant sanctuary, not totally in our area, but there are some in the United States, and there's another one in California. I was doing internet research on the elephant sanctuaries and reading about elephants that were sent there or brought there and how they're cared for and, you know, what they have access to and everything. And something that struck me while I was watching these stories, of course, when it's a sanctuary, the elephants that show up may not be young, they may be in bad health, were pretty appalling conditions, covering, you know, if an elephant worked for a circus or if it was in a privately owned zoo or whatever, how to keep these animals and, you know, how to keep them healthy. And so the website for the Tennessee Sanctuary has a whole in memoriam section where elephants who passed away, they talk about how they came there and what condition they were in and what happened with them and how they passed away. And one of the things that struck me about those elephants was their stomach. Some of them had stomach issues. They couldn't keep on weight, or they had scarring in their stomachs and so on. And that spurred thought for me, because when you own goats, they have 4 stomachs, and you have to be sort of particular about what they eat. Not so much that I've got to, you know, have a little scale and weigh out things for them, but that it's necessary for the goats to be healthy to eat roughage. They have to get access to things like weeds and bark, leaves, even dried ones, acorns, things like that in their diet. And I thought about those elephants, and I thought, they're drinking from this, in the Tennessee Sanctuary, a really nice looking lake. I mean, the water's blue, it's kind of clear, and I thought about what would be in that lake water. You know, there's probably catfish, there's probably something like bass or some sort of fish swimming around, some turtles. And then I thought about elephants in Africa, because some of the elephants in their sanctuaries, they're from Asia or Africa. And the water in Asia, because we've lived there multiple times, sometimes can be very polluted. But even if it's not polluted, there's different things in that water than there is in the water in the United States. And if they're using the lake water, it's probably not chlorinated or anything. But in Asia, you're going to have different fish, eels, wildlife drinking from and going to the bathroom near and runoff and everything into their waterways. Then it's going to be different than what's in our water. Deer, raccoon, turkeys, bobcats, rabbit, all of their droppings and stuff are going to be in our water. In Africa, it's going to be even more varied. And you and I have watched African videos and documentaries, and they show elephants drinking out of the water holes and whatever, and that water is like muddy brown and has had crocodiles and zebras and leopards and giraffes and wildebeest, warthogs, and everything in the world going to those things, and their feces and their urine and everything concentrated, and those elephants are drinking that.
Maybe they need it.
Maybe they need the specific bacteria, germs, viruses, waste products of all the variety of animals that they're used to. And when they come to the United States and they get this relatively clean but totally different fish, wildlife, mammals, reptiles than what they're used to, maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe it affects their gut system and their probiotics, and that these elephants, as part of a healthy diet for them, need water with those kind of contaminants, that kind of active, like acidophilus, like we need. Yeah, flora and fauna, like we need in yogurt, and why we need to eat yogurt and things like that. Maybe they need that in their diet. And I was talking to Pastor about that too. And the last little link in this chain of all this synchronicity is we got online and we were just relaxing after our activity, and I said, I want to watch this movie. It was the first movie that came up, and just a little teaser of it. It's two people in Africa, and I thought, yeah, let's watch it. I really didn't know what it was like. I thought it was going to be kind of like Out of Africa, scenic, vistas and life and death struggle and everything. Wound up being about an elephant sanctuary. Awesome. I love how the Father does that. I like how all these things are connected. I just think it's a fascinating part of being alive today. And thanks for coming along this particular ride with me. Love to see your comments. All right, bless you. Shalom.